Thank you. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you to Chris for introducing me to Saul so I could be here. This is a test, and nobody's laughing yet, and I'm wondering why. This sign is next to my house, and having lived there about 9 years at this intersection, probably driving by 2 or 3 times a day, it never occurred to me it was odd until my son said, "Mummy, what's a psychic cleaner?" And I went, oh, you know. So I like also to observe everywhere I go, and I think Keith, if he's still here, he carries his camera, so do I, yeah. And there's lots of these everywhere we go. So one of my desires is that more people should actually see what's in front of them. I find myself fumbling, fondling, and doing all sorts of things with taps nowadays. You know, doing this in front of them, walking backwards, and you know, just as you get it to, you know, spray, it goes off, you know. And if you're a woman, you sometimes put your handbag in it, and of course it's soaking wet. So they're becoming increasingly more difficult to use everyday things. This is an elevator, and in fact, there's only one button there that actually works, but the engineering task of making the front plate was they made 2 holes because, of course, they thought it's going to go up and down, but one of them is just dead. So it's incredibly frustrating to use these things because the arrow one is actually the one you use, but you fumble with the other 2 that do nothing. And this is just life. And then way back in the old days, we have actual labels now to tell you what to do, pull the handle, and then in this particular case, you push it, and then you lunge down because it's a 16th century home, and you hope that you're young enough to course correct without twisting your ankle. So it goes on. We recently received these rather bizarre rectangular objects to the office, and we were also given these little cards, warning, which was a real clue to me that these were clearly something we were going to use a lot. And they happen to just be pillars that you prop your ass on, as they say, you know, like this. So we have what they call standing meetings with pillars. So that was a challenge for my group. I found this toaster in Australia. And this made a lot of sense to me, a bit more. I love it because that's exactly what I want sometimes, a bit more. So I'm trying to make this a little personal. I grew up in England, in case my accent has really gone away now, but I hope it's still there, in Canterbury. And for those people, David, who are looking at this, no, that's not Canterbury, that's York. It just happened to not have a Canterbury photo. Anyway, and I took people around tours, and we had a lot of Americans there, and they used to call the cathedral the big church. And that used to perturb me because I didn't know where the big church was. I knew where the cathedral was. So as a little girl, I got very irritable. But then I noticed the Americans were incredibly cheerful, incredibly optimistic about everything. So I began this love-hate relationship with them. But also, they started to ask, when was the cathedral built? And that got me very frustrated because the internet didn't actually exist then. Wikipedia didn't tell me the answer until yesterday. It's 597, so it's 597. And they didn't have a begin end. It then was rebuilt and then rebuilt, 17th century, etc. So it got me worked up about numbers, and the Americans thinking differently than English people. So then my mother said, jolly good, you can't do anything to do with creative things because you're never going to have a job. So you have to do something scientific. I put a picture up because she's 90 next week. And so her saying no made me immediately want to do things like that. So I couldn't. So I did a degree in psychology. And then I decided that it was time to leave and do something in America because that's where all the optimistic, cheerful, big men were. So it's true. And that's not a suitcase, but it was the only Union Jack I had in my photo album. That's a fridge that I took this week, or last month, sorry, in Berlin. But anyway, off I go to America. And along the way, you go to the usual, place to get drinks. And this is the sort of what America is to me. You know, it's like liquid psychiatry. You know, it was fantastic. You have all sorts of wonderful products doing utterly meaningless things, such as washcloths that change color. And I mean, who needs this? Imagine the marketing campaign. It's going to be a big winner. It's going to change color when you wash. You know, so why? I don't know. Anyway, my path was no was a motivator for me. And I think observing these things in your life is really a full-time occupation. And I love America because you try things out. And I think praise is overrated. Certainly my parents gave me no praise. But it was very hard to find real honesty. I mean, I love Americans. They would, how are you? How's your day? They don't actually really want to know how it was. Who answers, it was crap, you know. You can't say that. You had to say, it was terrific. So anyway, I went to Honeywell, and I did my interview there, and Honeywell said to me, "You're the worst presenter we've ever heard." So that's why I'm here. I started, I nearly cried, and I said, okay, and I started to walk away down the corridor, and they said, but we're going to give you a job. And I said, why? I'm the worst you've ever heard, you know. And they said, but you're eminently trainable. So I worked at Honeywell, and my curiosity ended up doing some work on the space shuttle, etc. And of course, if you go from the thermostat, that little dial that Dreyfus did took 9 years to get into Honeywell's pipeline. So design takes a long time, and they gave me these sorts of things to design, which were just a nightmare for me. But they were very challenging, and they never ever can really be done perfectly. Anyway, my goal in life has been to simplify. Dilbert, of course, has something to say about everything. And this is the history of my life. You know, what do we need to do? We need to, you know, add simplicity to the list, of course. And it's going to be this, and it's going to be that, and also simple and easy to use, of course. And of course, everyone here agrees with this, but it's always and. So the marketing people go around saying, we're going to market this with all of these features, and you're going to want every single one of them. I mean, how many devices do you see with 1 or 2 features? So less is often harder, and it's also very, very difficult to persuade people to take things out. So easy, often you don't notice it's easy if like this actually works. Amazing, you know. It goes next and back. Fabulous, you know. So if it works, you don't often notice it. So I did some work with a small thing called QuickTime when I was at Apple. You can read about it in this book. And then I had an interesting experience, which you'll all find probably amusing because Richard was here yesterday. I saw this wonderful conference called TED, and there were just every person I thought I'd ever want to talk to in my life. I tried to get into the conference. Sorry, you can't get in. It's full. So then I said, okay, well, I'm going to phone him. And of course, I got the, who are you? Why do you want to talk to me? You know, with that, even worse than that. And he was rather arrogant, and as he always is. And he said, well, I'm only going to talk to you if you show up. So I showed up, and this rather stout person in those days came out, you know, and said, who are you? You know, why should I talk to you? So I said, well, I'm important just like you, you know, although of course I didn't actually feel it, I said it. And I said, I want to come to the conference. Why won't you let me in? And he said, well, this is for white, Jewish, middle-aged men, and you don't fit in. So I said, well, I want to go even more now. So we took a boat ride to Sausalito. That was the price of entry. And he said, if I let you in, you have to talk next year. So I did talk at TED before it changed to the current format, although you can't actually find my talk because Richard lost the recording, unfortunately. So we began a long relationship since then, and the curmudgeon in him sparked me on to be even more determined, just like my mother, right? So I've always been anti-establishmentarianism, however the hell you spell that, I don't know. And I did this, I didn't do it, but some people in my group did this at Yahoo when I was the vice president of so-called innovation. Can anyone see what that is? What is it? So it's interesting. Some people answer post-it, some people answer hand. All right? How big is it? Small. I can't see anyone's. If you look at the plug on the wall, it's probably half the size of it's the size of one of those black curtains. So we did this in the group, just one afternoon, why not? Which then led to a huge ruckus, right? The ruckus was they thought I commissioned an artist to do this. And how much did I pay for it? So I just let them go on and on and on. And needless to say, a couple of weeks later, they sent someone over to examine it and see how much money it was going to cost to pull it down. So I said, well, you can just pull it off the wall, So I think disruption is important, do the unexpected, but you have to pay the price sometimes, sadly. And I've got war wounds, not as dramatic as some. I've been interested in other weird things recently. This is that horrible woman who was with the Clippers guy who apparently didn't actually have sex with him, but whatever. She decided she was going to wear this so that we didn't see her face. I just find that interesting because I don't know if you would walk around like that, but I wonder if it's going to be a trend. I think that we would probably start doing things more like that. And I'm interested in that. I want to have disguises a lot because I don't want people to talk to me. I don't want any more connections on LinkedIn, thank you. And I don't want any more friends. I've got enough friends, and I like the ones I have. So I've done a lot of work sponsoring art schools, and I'm going to show you some work from a design expo in a minute. This is a video, and it's a wooden mirror. And what I like about it is that you move in front of it, you can see your body slightly, and each of the pieces of wood pivots around to reflect your shadow, as it outlines, sorry. And that project was done in '99, which is pretty amazing, and it blew people's minds. So I think doing weird things is very important. This is my son. He always has to be in some presentation I'm doing. He's now a quarterback, so he doesn't look like this at all. And these sorts of things for children are just expected nowadays. Touch screens everywhere. Thank you, iPad, sorry. So I'm going to try in the last 3 minutes, I'd see, that I have to do, I couldn't hire anyone at Apple. Someone's saying something. Sorry. Do you want to come on stage? Anyway, so I was reflecting on my life and why I did the Design Expo. I did it because I couldn't find enough people to hire. So I decided to start sponsoring interdisciplinary collaborative projects at universities. And I've done it for 22 years, stopped it 2 or 3 years ago. The amount of money was a very small grant to typically 6 to 8 universities worldwide. We've asked them to design future computers. The first challenge was a family of computers. Wow, that seems relevant now. Even one that would make you laugh. So I picked a different topic every year, and we had an event where they all came together. And I'm going to show you some of the pieces of work. They're very multicultural, very weird and wonderful, and my job was to try and present them to our CIO, CTO, and CEOs, and you'll find some of them quite interesting. So one of them was one of the first projects using the Mechanical Turk. This was a project done by Aaron Koblin for the Design Expo. He was an undergrad when he did this. He now runs Google's, whatever it's called, fancy, dancy, I don't know what it is, and a group of visualizing people. So he challenged people to draw a sheep facing left, and you got 2 cents to do it. And I remember, my boss saying, "I'm sorry, what's this project about? What relevance does this have to, Yahoo?" And I said, "Oh, trust me, it'll be really great, So I don't know why, but I thought it was really fantastic. It was the first time I'd seen this kind of thing. And the 10,000 sheep I printed on a big poster. Again, big is important because people can then see it, right? And this really, to me, marked a turn in the economy, which was a microeconomy. For the first time, you could actually just outsource work from regular people. So it's very, very surprising that this many people would actually do sheep. This is only, I think the data's on the next slide. That was the average amount of time between 46 minutes and 4 seconds drawing a sheep. Why? I have no idea. Why would you do it? No idea. But this is really interesting stuff to think about what we can get people to do. Not everyone wants to be publicly known. Some people want to do things without being known. This is a project where they designed a fruit bowl in Holland that when you came home, you could put your keys in, it snapped a picture of you. And then what it would do, the other end, it was connected on the internet, and mother would be sitting with her fruit bowl, and it would start to wobble for her to know that the son was home. So, I know, if you want moving furniture, maybe, but anyway, here we have the mother going, oh good, son's home. So I thought that was kind of cute, because it's a light way of staying in touch without, Mom, I'm home, So another project was talking flowers. This was a big win, because the security guards were like, what do you want me to do? Tell people to listen to the flowers? And, yeah, sure, you just lean over the flower, and there's a little speaker in the bottom that tells a story. Each individual flower has a story. Totally freaked people out. Now, the artist said, no, you don't want to put a label on it. You can't put talk to the flowers on it, because it's an aesthetic, violation of art. So I had to stand there going, look at the flowers. They're really nice. So you can see what I mean by you had to break the rules and keep going. Here's one some NYU students did. At night, they had a camera projecting down from a fire hydrant. And when you moved, the little creepy crawlies came out, which makes people totally freaked out. Anyway, it's different. This one led me into, trying to cover up some of the video I shot. This is light sensors cooked into lollipops from CCA. And I have a lot of compromising video of vice presidents. Right. Very, very compromising. And at the other end, sorry, we're trying to move on, and of course next is now not working, having said this works. Could we move to the next slide, please? Yes, and at the other end there were babies that we think actually can also move. Are they going to move? No, they're not. Nice man in the back said no, that's great. But in any case, the babies did this and they had a race. Is it better when I mime it? So anyway, imagine I'm one of those, right? So it was very, very bizarre, but it was, I explained that we'd have to have look and feel, and this is sort of along a continuum of sensory awareness. So I'm moving on. Touch is very important, and we keep forgetting that part of the interface. The last one here is grass that was built into an igloo. Right, I think I have to click again. Right, and she grew the grass with microfilaments, so that you could do this, and it moved video forward and backwards. And so one of the blind people in the group was just so enthralled with this that grass could be used as an input device and move an insect, etc., all around. So these are sculptor students who learned to use Max, M-A-X, the programming language, with all sorts of other devices, rather like, is it Camille? I forgot your name, the lady who did the robots. To design not just robotic-looking things, but very sensorily beautiful things. And that's been my desire with interfaces as the years go by. I think this is what Walt Mossberg needs. Where are you? Anyway, and we have brooches that move and everything. So we're totally freaking out everyone. And what we're seeing is obviously interfaces are moving now to be rounder, tactile, very much more sensual. And the look and the feel is so much more important than it used to be. My big takeaway for all of you here is, please, we have to not just fund computer science, engineering, and math. We have to fund design as well, because we're going to start having to outsource design. I have almost not enough people I can hire that are trained in interdisciplinary design in team projects. And that's what I used to fund through the Design Expo. So I really do hope we can do better in America. We have half as many probably schools. I did some math yesterday on it, and it's really embarrassing to see how few schools actually do fund these kind of programs, interaction design. We have all sorts of industrial design, et cetera, but interaction is slightly different. So my end here is to try things. you may not know how to go. I used to say, don't go to a conference you know things about, go to one you don't know about. Go to landscape gardening or something. But you always learn something new. Be opportunistic and be brave. Going to see Richard Saul Wurman did change my life, and my God, it was terrifying to see that man who used to call himself a tub. The understanding business is what he ran. And yet, you can do it if you really put your mind to it. So be opportunistic. And I feel uncomfortable every moment of every day, but I still think it's been what made me a success. So thank you for listening.